Imagine living in a small group of a dozen people, no calendars, no doctors, no ultrasounds, and one day, someone in your tribe realizes they're pregnant. There's no test to confirm it, no due date written down anywhere, and absolutely no modern medical guidance waiting to help. So what actually happened next? How did an ancient community react, prepare, and survive one of the most dangerous and unpredictable events in early human life? The answer involves careful observation, shared responsibility, and a surprising amount of practical knowledge passed down entirely through memory and experience. This wasn't a topic ancient communities could afford to treat casually either. In a world with no hospitals, no emergency care, and no way to quickly get outside help if something went wrong, pregnancy and childbirth represented one of the highest stakes, most carefully managed events in the entire life of a small community. Let's start with how pregnancy was even recognized in the first place. Without any medical testing available, ancient communities relied entirely on physical signs and patterns women had observed and shared with each other for generations. A missed cycle, changes in appetite, physical changes in the body. These observations, repeated across countless women over countless generations, built up a shared, reliable body of knowledge about what pregnancy actually looked like. Once pregnancy was recognized, the entire dynamic of the group often shifted immediately. In many ancient societies, pregnancy wasn't treated as a private, individual experience the way it sometimes is today. It was treated as a shared responsibility of the whole community, because in a small group where survival depended on cooperation, the health of a pregnant woman directly affected the survival of everyone. This meant immediate practical changes. A pregnant woman would often be given lighter physical tasks, while other tasks were redistributed among the rest of the group. Hunting parties might adjust their routes to stay closer to camp. Food gathering often prioritized specific nutrients that experienced women in the community had learned through generations of trial and error seemed to support a healthier pregnancy. Experienced older women played an especially critical role throughout this entire process. Having witnessed or personally experienced childbirth multiple times, they became walking repositories of practical knowledge: which foods seemed to help, which physical activities seemed risky, and, crucially, what warning signs suggested something might be going wrong. This kind of knowledge could never be written down and simply looked up later. It had to be actively taught, demonstrated, and passed on directly from one experienced woman to a younger one, often over the course of years, through real situations rather than abstract instruction, making the loss of an experienced elder a genuine threat to the community's collective survival knowledge. This knowledge wasn't casual or informal either. In many ancient cultures, this role eventually evolved into something close to a dedicated position, an early form of midwife, someone specifically relied upon by the community for pregnancy and birth-related guidance, precisely because the stakes involved were so consistently high. This role often carried significant respect and social standing within the community, precisely because the knowledge required took years, sometimes decades, of direct experience to fully develop, and losing someone in this position could genuinely put the entire group's future reproductive success at serious risk. And the stakes truly were high. Childbirth in ancient times carried genuinely serious risks for both mother and child. Without modern medical intervention, complications that are easily treatable today could quickly become life-threatening. This harsh reality shaped how ancient communities approached pregnancy, treating it with a level of seriousness and careful preparation that reflected just how dangerous the process genuinely was. Physical preparation for birth itself varied significantly between different ancient cultures, but certain patterns appear repeatedly across very different regions and time periods. Many cultures developed specific birthing positions, often upright, squatting, or kneeling, rather than lying flat, positions that modern research has since confirmed may actually offer genuine physiological advantages during labor. Experienced women would often gather specific plants believed to ease reduce pain, encourage labor when it stalled, or help control bleeding afterward. While not all of these remedies would hold up under rigorous modern scientific testing, some have since been found to contain genuinely active compounds that align remarkably well with their traditional intended use. The birth itself was rarely a solitary event. Multiple experienced women typically attended, providing physical support, emotional reassurance, and, crucially, real-time problem-solving if complications began to arise. This wasn't simply about tradition or comfort. Having multiple sets of experienced hands and eyes present significantly increased the chances of recognizing and responding to a dangerous situation before it became fatal. In many cultures, the birthing space itself was treated as a specifically protected environment, sometimes physically separated from the rest of the camp, allowing for privacy and focus while still keeping the mother within close, immediate reach of help if anything unexpected happened. After birth, the community's involvement didn't end. New mothers were often given a specific recovery period, protected from strenuous work, while other members of the group temporarily absorbed her usual responsibilities. This wasn't simply kindness. It reflected a practical understanding that a mother's full recovery directly affected both her own survival and her ability to properly care for a newborn during its most vulnerable early period. Infant mortality rates in ancient times were devastatingly high by modern standards, and communities developed practices specifically aimed at giving newborns the best possible chance of survival. This included careful attention to keeping infants warm, ensuring consistent access to breast milk, and in many cultures, delaying full social integration of the infant into the wider community until survival through the earliest, most vulnerable weeks seemed more likely. This practice, while difficult to consider by modern emotional standards, reflected a pragmatic response to an unavoidably harsh reality, protecting the emotional resources of the community while still providing genuine care and attention to every newborn during this critical early period. Naming ceremonies in many ancient cultures were often deliberately delayed for similar practical reasons, sometimes waiting weeks or even months before formally naming and fully welcoming a child into the community's social and spiritual structure. What's remarkable looking back at all of this is how much sophisticated, effective knowledge ancient communities managed to develop and pass down entirely through observation, memory, and direct experience, without any written records, formal medical training, or scientific method as we understand it today. Modern medicine has since replaced much of this hands-on communal knowledge with clinical procedures and technology, but the underlying human instinct driving all of it, protecting mothers and children through careful preparation, shared responsibility, and hard-earned collective experience, remains essentially unchanged across an almost unimaginable span of human history. It's worth remembering that every single one of us exists today because this exact system, imperfect, high risk, and entirely dependent on memory and shared care, worked well enough, generation after generation, to bring new life safely into a genuinely dangerous world. If you find this hidden history of ancient pregnancy and childbirth as fascinating as we do, let us know in the comments what surprised you the most. And if you want more deep dives into how ancient humans actually survived, hit subscribe for more, because the quiet, everyday knowledge that kept early human communities alive is often far more fascinating than most people ever realize.